Hi guys, it's Phoebe. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in January. So let's get right into it. First, I read Cursed by by Thomas Wheeler, illustrated by Frank Miller. I first heard of this obviously as the Netflix show and then got this book for Christmas. My understanding is that this book was always written to be turned into a show. And that, to me, I think kind of affects the way that it reads. Like, it just feels like a show. There's not a lot of things like happening inside of the characters' heads, if that makes sense. The events are kind of laid out in the way that you would expect like a TV show or a movie to kind of be laid out. Overall, I neither loved nor hated this book, honestly. I don't have any specific complaints about it other than it was just overall fairly unremarkable to me. There are a lot of Arthurian retellings, and so I think you have to be trying really hard to make yours stand out. And I don't know if this completely hit that for me. Again, though, it still wasn't bad. Like, there's not anything about this book that I can really heavily critique. I will say, so overall this book, let me give you a little bit of a synopsis here. The book follows Nimue, who is part of basically a fae community, I guess. It's also not set in England, I don't believe. I think it's set in like mainland Europe. And so she's kind of like a fae, like fairy community that's being oppressed by pretty much the church. And her mother dies and entrusts her with a sword, which at the beginning I understood to be Excalibur, and now I'm not 100% sure. But she is trying to get it to Merlin. Her mother's like dying wishes for her to get it to Merlin. Merlin, we find out, is a wizard in the court of King Uther, but he's a wizard who doesn't have any magical powers, and he's basically just kind of a drunk. And his character, I think, to me was the most disappointing because I think that there was a lot of opportunity for him to be a lot of comic relief, being a wizard who has lost his power and has turned to alcoholism. I think that there could have been like a dark, funny way to kind of do that and make him like an interesting person. Maybe we unpack his baggage a little bit later in the story, but that never really happened. So I feel like we missed a good opportunity there. The character Nimue, I believe that there's going to be a sequel just based on the way that this ends and the fact that it is a Netflix show series. But her character, for the most part, to me was really annoying, which I kind of like hate as a critique for like young female characters, that people think that they're annoying. But she was getting better towards the end of the book, but I felt like she had like a lot of selfishness and a lot of like not being willing to accept help from others, if that makes sense. So I'm hoping to see that kind of grow and change in the future. Arthur comes into play. He's a knight that Nimue like befriends, and he comes along with her on this like journey. So I'm not really sure how this is all going to tie together with Arthur ending up being the king or whatever. Like I said, though, at the end of the day, this book I thought was perfectly fine. Again, neither loved nor hated. I'll be perfectly happy to continue the series and see where we go from here. Following that track of kind of YA, this is not fantasy, but it is sci-fi. It is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. Finally picked this up, have been wanting to for a very long time. So this is about a young girl named Spensa who lives on a human colony on on a planet. Not Earth, and a lot of their culture and their life revolves around pilots who have to protect their small civilization that is mostly underground from aliens that try to attack their city from above. And Spence's struggle is that her father when she was a child, her father was accused of being a traitor and basically abandoning the colony during this really important battle. Um, so the book mostly follows Spensa as she struggles to get into pilot training, and then as she is training to be a pilot and is uncovering more secrets that the government of this colony is hiding from the people, and as she learns what really happened with her father and if he really is a coward or not, and what the aliens are that they have been fighting for decades but really don't know anything about. This book I found very interesting. I did enjoy Spence's growth as a character through this book. I feel like at the beginning she starts out obviously really childlike, really naive, and as things go on, as she gets deeper into her pilot training, as she gets deeper into like, you know, uncovering different truths about her society, she really starts to mature and see life from different perspectives. I am very excited to continue this trilogy. I know that it has been completed and all the books are out, so I'm looking forward to continuing with this story. And now on the fantasy track, I read the first two prequels of the Witcher books. So I read The Last Wish and Sword of Destiny. Both of these books, I feel like they're ones that are going to be a little bit harder to talk about. I don't know what it is. I feel like for me, because I like books that are very, like, I connect with the characters. The stories are pretty character driven. And so I feel like YA books normally kind of tickle my fancy for that. And then like fantasy books that are targeted for mature audiences typically don't do that as much for me, if that makes sense. So while I think these books were good, I feel like they didn't really like tip into like a favorites category, just because the main character is like this, I don't want to say immortal, but aged warrior male, and his love interest is like an immortal sorceress. And you know, at the end of the day, there's not a lot of characters that I can see myself in these stories. But that aside, I do think they are really strong books. I really enjoyed the storytelling. I really enjoyed the writing. The world building and the magic system is unlike anything else I've ever read. And I mean, obviously I feel like The Witcher has kind of grown to classic status in the fantasy world. So I am enjoying my time. I do have the whole series, so I'm excited to keep going with those. Yeah, just overall, I am enjoying these stories of Geralt fighting monsters with his motley crew of friends. Another book that I read in January was a Kristen Hanna book, because who would I be without her? It was Night Road. This was a book for me that I've talked a lot about her on my channel, of course. So if you remember anything of that, her more recent works, I absolutely adore. Her books from 10, 15 years ago, don't love as much. Night Road, I feel like definitely like walks the line of the books that I don't like and the books that I think are really wonderful. This is a book, as usual, her stories are about motherhood and family. Shocking. And more importantly, found family and the mothers and daughter relationships that are maybe not conventional mother-daughter relationships. And this book really is no different. There is a mother whose name is Jude, and she has twins, and her life is taking care of her twins. And they're boys and girls. And so her girl twin Lexi ends up meeting and making friends with this girl her girl twin's name is Mia. And Mia meets a girl named Lexi, and they become best friends. And Lexi has a really kind of dark past. Her mother had substance abuse issues, and now Lexi is being raised by her aunt, I want to say, in a less affluent part of town, and obviously she has a lot of her own struggles and issues in that sense. And so a lot of the book focuses on these kids going through high school and this mother who is struggling to let go of her children, or like raise them, I guess. And then something tragic happens. No spoilers, even though I think this book came out in like 2010. Something tragic happens. It kind of like upends all of their lives. And so there's a lot of like trauma all these characters have to work through. I will say, for me, this book was really hard to read because the main character, mom, Jude, is a total helicopter, like, controlling parent. And that was like almost triggering for me to read, because all of her things of like trying so hard to like control her children and like keep her children safe. There's like one level where I'm like, okay, I can understand that as a mom, you want to keep your children safe. And sometimes that can lead you to be too controlling. But I'm also like, Jude needs to see a freaking therapist, because, I don't know. A lot of the book was me just judging her parenting skills and being like, you need to back off on your kids. You are not doing them any favors by what you're doing. And then the book, like, as the book continues, it kind of turns into like a generational thing where, I mean, it's not that it wasn't accurate. It just wasn't pleasant to read about this family being like destroyed and how different personalities kind of handle things. And really, a lot of the problems in this book could have been solved with like someone going to therapy. Not to say that it's not well written and the characters are well developed and blah, blah, blah. It was just kind of heavy. Like, it ends like things are okay, but I was still like, there was like 20 years of like some really stupid things that didn't need to happen, and it was really frustrating to read about. The last book I'm going to talk about, I'm not actually going to finish in January. I'm filming this on February 1st, and I'm like over halfway done, but not quite finished. But it's a short book. I know I'm going to finish it soon, and it's nonfiction. So nonfiction, I feel like I can usually talk about it before the ending, because it's not like I'm waiting for character development or a climax of or issues to be resolved, stuff like that. So I am reading Remember, The Science of Memory and the Art of Forgetting by Lisa Genova. I'm really enjoying this book. It's a pretty slim volume, and she keeps it very quick, very interesting. Another thing that I like is because she's talking so much about, like, obviously memory and how we form our memories and different kinds of memories and all kinds of stuff like that. I appreciate that. Her chapters are pretty brief and she repeats herself or like restates things. And that is helpful to someone who can be as forgetful as I am, because it makes it a quick read that's easy to remember. I can put it down for a little bit, come back to it. And if I'm like, ooh, I can't really remember what this chapter is about that I'm kind of like in the middle of, she's gonna restate like what she's talking about. So it's very easy to get like back on track, which I appreciate and makes sense given the subject matter of this book. Those are the books that I read during January. I really need to pick up the pace since I made the very ballsy goal of reading 100 books this year, and I am already a tad behind, but hoping to catch up on that. I just feel like I'm in a little bit of a reading slump where it's like there's other things I'd rather be doing besides reading, whether it's like I want to watch TV, like I want to scroll on TikTok. You know how it goes. But thank you so much for watching. I'm hoping February will have a little bit more quantity of books, but if the quality stays the same, I'll be perfectly happy. Thanks you guys for watching. Bye!